I've come here with a couple of cautionary tales that we can explore. I feel you can only take lesser evilism so far, and that it's a trap. It's sort of disrupts thought and logic and fact, and so we have a considerable evil afoot. But I would first of all want to assert Donald Trump did not create Donald Trump. Okay, and what his being president represents is a failure of moderate Republicans. I mean, after all, this guy wiped away the whole slate of the Republican Party, and a failure of the Democratic Party to come up with a populist, progressive alternative. But more significantly, the establishment of both of these parties abetted, created the conditions that have caused so much misery in our society right now. And the biggest argument I have with people that I'm personally around most of the time is a lot of people I know are not hurting that much. I live downtown LA, and I remember in Occupy what was going on, and I went a number of times in Occupy Oakland and other places, Santa Fe, even New York. And I was actually in Occupy a week before it was crushed, and I was in a program with Robert Scheer, who I have a lot of respect for. We had a wonderful sort of teach-in there, a very large crowd, much more larger than here, and it was very nice. And then I came home from teaching at USC about a week later, and I'm looking out the window. I said, God, they're making another movie downtown. Isn't it a little late? Because I saw these helicopters. And so I went to sleep, and a few hours later, my daughter-in-law woke me up and said, you better pay attention to what's going on. I said, what's going on? And she said, they're crushing Occupy. I said, what? And so I went running down, and I went into one of those Dog Day Afternoon moments. You remember that movie?
Yeah.
Everything escalates. And for some reason, I thought, well, I can't get there. I'll drive my car. So I drove my car around, and I parked on 6th and Main, somewhere down there. And if you know that area, it's Calcutta. It's horrible. And I put my car there. I think it's gonna be safe. Yeah, it's okay, and everything. And then I had this idea. This thing is, by then I had learned that the mayor had ordered the crushing of it, and I knew the mayor quite well ever since he was in the ACLU, Antonio Villaraigosa, liberal guy. And when I had my local column on the West Side, he's somebody I called regularly. I knew him quite well. I thought, maybe the mayor, this was where the Dog Day Afternoon starts, only by then it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I had the idea, maybe the mayor has not read my book, American Stick-Up, which explains how we had the banking meltdown and all that sort of thing, and where we got these collateralized debt obligations and credit default swaps and phony mortgages, and how bipartisan it was, and how it took Bill Clinton in cooperation with Phil Gramm to push through the deregulation of the New Deal and create this whole mess. So I thought perhaps the mayor doesn't fully understand our connection with the pain that some of these people are feeling, not having jobs or a place to live or a stake in the society. And I get this idea, I'm going to take my copy of my book back to Villaraigosa to get him to read it. But that meant going through what by then had become very aggressive police lines and concrete barriers being put in. And you really had to wonder, and the justification that I remember hearing is, oh, it had gotten unruly. Sometimes people were defecating somewhere, or I said, wait a minute, I've just parked my car over there, where, that's a scene that is really quite frightening and unruly, which is this vast area. It's the opposite of Topanga. Okay, and I'm sure you're familiar with it, but we have this vast area of human misery, which somehow we accommodate. And so now I said, but wait a minute, City Hall was a center of enlightenment. It was wonderful compared to over here. There's miles of misery and violence and all sorts of things. And, our homeless population. So again, going on with this sort of disconnect of a dog day afternoon, I said, maybe you don't understand. No, this was a teaching, this Occupy. And then I realized, so I get through the police, and you can't go there, and you can't go there, and everybody's being very aggressive and hysterical. And I run into the crowd, now it's daylight, and I run into the crowd that's coming to work. There are people. Some of them even recognize me. Hey, Bob, what are you doing here? You know, and they work for the state government. They work for the federal government. They work for City Hall. Okay? And they're saying things like, it's about time. It's about time. Because the visual display of suffering was bothersome. The problem was with Occupy is that some folks took their right under the Constitution, right, to peacefully assemble for a redress of grievances. And I saw this in Santa Fe, I saw it in Oakland, and they, oh, but okay, that was nice for a day, maybe a week. But wait a minute, go away now. Go away now, it's inconvenient. Well, the people lining up to get into their office places, they had good jobs. They didn't feel the recession. Maybe there were a few furlough things. And then you recognize we had a class division in our own ranks. After all, Occupy was crushed by all but one Republican moderate mayor, Bloomberg, in New York. The rest were all Democrats, all enlightened people, all people who came out of movements we probably were connected with. And the disconnect was that they did not really get the suffering out there. That's on the Democratic side. They didn't get it, okay? And then Bernie Sanders came along, and he reminded people, yeah, you know, the old blue states in the Midwest, they're not doing so well. The Rust Belt's not doing so well, and so forth. And again, I was at the Democratic convention. I wrote about all this and so forth. The response of the Democratic establishment was very much the same as the response of the Republican establishment, is get in line, we have our ways of dealing with this is counterproductive, and so forth. So, when I think of the rise of Trump, I think of it as the failure of bipartisan establishment politics in America. And a very deliberate set of policies that were endorsed. I'm not going to go into all the details, and you can ask questions after, and I'll make the case. So that is alarming to me.